I believe in the intelligence of actors. What's going on in the moment? What's this scene about? Not what this shot is about. What do you want to do? What's stopping you from doing it?
Welcome to the segment of Mawaheb Chats. We're here with Mr. Norman Schwartz, who's been working in Hollywood and Rome for over 40 years. And we're all blessed here to have him and pick his brain and ask questions. Let's start with introducing ourselves first. I'm Talal Lesmani, Development Executive here in Imagination.
I'm Philip Rashid, I'm 35 years old. I started out as an actor 15 years ago. Gave up everything to pursue my career in filming.
I'm Sarah Faber, and I'm a writer and filmmaker, and I recently won the Film Studio competition last year.
My name is Rashid Al-Mahari, background in film and TV production, and now I work for the Abu Dhabi Film Festival.
My name is Saadetdin Kharouf. I studied filmmaking in New York Film Academy, and I just started the business, so let's hope we can make it.
And Norman, can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we start?
Well, I worked as a film editor and a director for 40 or more years before I started teaching for the New York Film Academy. And I've been here in Abu Dhabi for 5.5 years, teaching directing, writing, and acting.
I guess this is an opportunity for us to ask about things that are going to be useful for us filmmakers now. And we won't talk about what you've worked on because it's they're nothing. It's like E.T., Exorcist, small things, like Predator. So yeah, we'll skip that and talk and start asking questions that us young filmmakers can actually find useful.
Let's talk about now.
Now.
That's the big problem, is how do you make films now?
Exactly.
All right.
I'll start off with a question to start everybody off, and then we'll take turns. One big thing I've found is, in the now filmmaking is that the smaller cameras are very accessible, and they produce good quality footage. So my question here is, when is it, or how is story first more important than big budget?
Well, the obvious answer is that when people go to the cinema, they're not concerned with the camera or the editing. What they're going for is a story. And the story can be very simply told or very complexly told. But if there's no story, all the photography, lighting, music, sound effects, special effects will not a good picture make. And after teaching for so many years, I've discovered that many people can learn to operate a camera, edit a film, record sound very quickly. What most people don't learn or can't learn quickly is writing a story and directing actors in the story. So the thing that makes directing wonderful or filmmaking wonderful is that if you're not strong in certain areas, there are other people who are, and they should be members of your team. That's what I've discovered. There are very few people that were born with all the necessary skills that it takes to be a filmmaker. The smart ones surround themselves with people who have skills that they don't have. That's been my experience. So if you can't write, find a writer. If you can't photograph, find a good photographer. That's the way films are made. The story I always tell is I grew up in Greenwich Village, and in those days we would have a double feature in the local cinema, usually a Hollywood film. And one day there was an experimental film, an independent film done in black and white, which was very rare indeed, rare to show in a conventional cinema. And it was a story about a prize fighter, a boxer who falls in love with a ballet dancer. And it was shot in a kind of documentary style. It was so terrible, so pretentious, that everyone in the theater started laughing and calling out to the theater. Well, I remembered I was very interested. It was Stanley Kubrick's first film.
Wow.
If you had seen the film, you would have said, Stanley, you're not a director. Stanley, I wouldn't do this if I were you. So again, what I'm saying is, we all have to start someplace.
I have a question.
Yes.
I found it kind of challenging to manage actors on set, especially kids as well. What is the best way to deal with that, especially if I have actors or actresses who are, acting like divas?
Well, okay, there are many problems here. We, in the New York Film Academy, we give a 1-week course in Paris for teenagers, high school people. And to my great amazement, in 1 week, a young person can learn to operate a camera, write a script, go out on location and photograph, edit on a laptop. The hardest part of all is dealing with actors because there are no set rules. The important thing, to my mind, is that you as a filmmaker understand that there's a language that actors speak. In other words, you wouldn't go on location with your DP and say, I need a shot somewhere in the room. You would be very specific and say, I'd like a master shot. I think we should take it from here looking towards the door. Or you might say to the lighting director, you know, I want to duplicate sunset in Abu Dhabi. Actors have their own language, and it's a language that I teach. So one of the things that happens instantly, that if you don't speak the language of acting, actors will say she doesn't know what she's doing or he doesn't know what he's doing. Therefore, it is a special craft, and without giving you a lecture, you have to understand what actors want from you. I always say to my students, don't go over to an actor and say, this is going to be a tracking shot that starts in 2 and ends up in a close-up. Actors couldn't care less. What they want to know is, what am I doing in this moment as my character, and what do I want, and what's stopping me from doing it? All right. As for children, the problem with children is it's a game. Children tire very quickly, so you've got to catch them very quickly. You have to explain the game, let's play the game, and you know, they're not going to wait around 45 minutes while your DP decides that there's an interesting shadow on the wall if we could only, you know, move the light up 3 inches. So again, what you use with a professional actor is quite different than what technique you might use with a child. But again, I think it is the hardest part of directing. Very few people have ever learned how to do it well.
So, Professor, every director has his own technique.
Exactly.
Recently, I watched a film called The Blue is the Warmest Color.
Yes.
And the director, he gave them the script, and after that, like, they read the script once, and they took that script, and they told the actors, just forget the script now, let's act.
All right, that's called the improvisational way of making a film. There are many improvisational directors who, in effect, don't give the actors the entire script. Because they want you to, in the moment, you're acting what the story is. They don't want you to know how the story ends. Now, of course, that's a very difficult technique, but it can be done. Now, there are directors who do the opposite. They write a script, and when they're out on location, they say, no, 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 no. I want you to say, no, I never expected you to look this way. That's what we call giving a line reading. I don't think it's a very good way to work, but you can work that way. What I'm trying to say is it depends on the people you're working with. There are actors that need a lot of tender, loving care. They want to talk to you. They want to discuss the roles. They want to feel that you're their father or, you know, your lover or whatever it is. Again, that's why I say learning to direct actors, particularly beginning actors, is one of the hardest jobs. And unless you can call up a casting director and say, I'd like Sir Anthony Hopkins to play the father and Dame Judi Dench, you better learn what this is about.
I have a question more, again, about the improvisation part, and
Yes.
I understand the actors part, but I believe from a DOP side and the relationship between the director, DOP, and the actors,
Yes.
how should that synchronize the improvisation?
Very good
part?
question. The rule of thumb is that I say, after improvisation, and improvisations lead actors free, you are the director and you're watching what they do. And you say at a certain point, okay, now that we've done this, let's block the scene. One of the techniques I have is the script supervisor sits next to me. He or she has written down every move, including right hand, left hand, or whatever it is. And I say, tap me if somebody does something wrong. All right? Now, if in the long shot where the girl is breaking up with the guy, the script supervisor taps me when he picks up the glass or something, I'm saying, I don't cut. Why? Because I know I'm not going to be on the long shot for that move. But I'm very concerned about those key emotional moments. But I always encourage as I did when Saad was working, you know, if Saad, I'm not looking through the lens. So if Saad is doing a shot and the actor got up too fast, if Saad goes like this, I'll call cut, because that's telling me that there's a bad camera move. Now, on the other hand, If Saad waves at me and I don't say anything, he knows that is I don't care that it's a bad tilt because I'm never going to use the tilt in that angle. All right? These are the techniques, many techniques.
You had a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously here in the UAE, we're not usually working with big budgets and,
Yes.
and large crews. So sort of from a writing and directing perspective, what would you advise somebody or the general best practices to do when you're working in that kind of environment?
Well, again, you, because you're an experienced, you've made other films, you are very conscious as you write of what the production problems are going to be. And they may be location permits, time from getting from one place to the other, the capacity of the actors to, create what you've written. So my advice is try to conceive of something that's very simple and easily done. Don't give you something, write a script that if you can't really get the best actors in the world, the script doesn't come off. That, it's very frustrating. So, that in effect, you've got to work within the limitations of time and budget. And here, the acting pool, as we have a very small acting pool. So if you write something that is really dependent on very subtle performance, you may not be able to find the actor or actress who has that ability.
So I think we're running out of time.
Very good.
So it was a pleasure to ask, for all of us, I'm sure, to ask you all these questions.
And I'd be delighted to help any of you in any aspect of your career. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.